I am a massive fan of the Cybertronian Bumblebee movie designs. They were made in a rush, yeah, but they all look so vibrant and cohesive despite that. And my favorite of these designs would have to be Soundwave. Yes, I know, just bear with me here. Which he already got a figure of in the Studio Series line. Now, my second favorite design of these would have to be Shockwave. Helped by the fact that his G1 design was already pretty cool as is. So when I heard that they were making a Studio Series figure of him, I was incredibly excited. Unfortunately, some posability issues with the figure came to light during the reveal process, which sorta dampened my excitement just a little bit. Now that I have the figure in hand, are the issues really as bad as I thought they'd be? Well, greetings people of YouTube, I'm Screaming Star, and today I'll be reviewing the Transformers Studio Series Voyager class Bumblebee movie Shockwave. If you've seen my recent community post, you'll know that I am currently obsessed with Shockwave due to his recent appearance in the Skybound Transformers comics. Not gonna spoil anything, I mean I haven't even read the latest issue by the time of writing, but let's just say that he's quickly become one of my favorite villains in recent memory. Though this isn't the same design as the one from Skybound, which literally is just G1 Shockwave, I'm still pleased to have a Shockwave figure in my collection to satisfy my cravings. But of course a figure needs to stand on its own, separated from the character that it represents. So how well does this figure hold up in that regard? I'd say pretty dang good, though he's kind of the opposite from the Bumblebee Megatron that I reviewed last time in the sense that his posability is pretty He still feels like a competently made action figure. One thing he has in common with Megatron though would be his accessory count. Yippee. To be fair, I don't really know what else to give Shockwave other than his arm cannon, which is mandatory IMO, and the hose that connects it to his back. Unlike Megatron though, I'm not really demanding more from him, as he's still a sizable Voyager class figure with subpar articulation that doesn't suit crazy dynamic poses as well as the previously mentioned Megatron. The cannon itself looks pretty rad. It's way more detailed than it ever was in G1, but it's really not a bad thing. Even with him just standing there, pointing this definition of overcompensation at you, he looks menacing. And the rubber hose doesn't interfere with his posability either, which is nice. Not like he had much of it to begin with anyways. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. For now, let us discuss my favorite part. The aesthetic here is gorgeous. As I've stated, this is my favorite Cybertronian Bumblebee design, and this figure is a dead ringer for how you look in the film, for the 5 seconds that we saw him for at least. The color of purple they chose here is nice, vibrant, and I like it. Haters will say it's too bright, but I don't see it as an issue. Even if it were, there are a whole lot of sculpted engreebles here that will distract you from it, some of which are even covered in silver dry brushing. Lovely. It's not as intricate as Megatron, but still detailed enough for you to not get bored while looking at it. What can get boring though is his head sculpt. Well, not the sculpt itself, mind you, because it is very well crafted, but more so the light piping, or lack thereof. There's light piping here, it is intentional, but somehow it just doesn't catch light super well, making the eyes look dead most of the time. Probably fitting since I'm sure he's dead inside. Thankfully, I have no such issue with the rest of his body, which is just candy to my eyes. Helps that he doesn't have much kibble, even the back looks great. Not good, mind you, genuinely great. The only instance of kibble that we've got are the tread details on his calves and forearms, but really? Are you gonna complain about such a thing? You're probably the kind of person who threw a tantrum after knowing that SS-86 Megatron will turn into a tank, aren't you? I'm just kidding, please don't hate me guys. I'm very lonely. Which is probably what Shockwave feels after his comrades realize that he's got an Autobot badge on his forearm. You traitor! See, Lord Megatron, I knew he was up to no good. It's a pretty cool attention to detail that they could have easily missed out on. For those unaware, this symbol is here because his CGI model is pretty much a partial of Optimus Prime's. Bottom line, he's a very good looking figure. I'm sure you'll be glad to know that he also feels very solid, which makes him pretty fun to play with. Or it would be pretty fun if it wasn't for... Let's get to my biggest gripe with this figure, his posability. It won't get ugly, but it's still pretty rough. So the articulation is pretty rough, and they did make some incredibly strange decisions here. I think the head is on a ball joint, but it can only swivel left and right, no up and down at all, just due to the head shape, which is fine. Shoulders can rotate 360, even with the hose on, which is quite nice. Okay, not quite 360, but close enough. They can move out on these soft ratchet joints, which is quite cool. Elbow bend, but no, burst up. Swivel! A crucial articulation joint is missing, and why? Well, allegedly it's this slot here interfering with the bicep swivel, and this is needed for the alt mode stability, but couldn't they have found any other way to give this a bicep swivel? An elbow swivel maybe? It really dampens the fun factor on this figure. Be grateful that you at least look good. Not right now because you're not focusing. Forearm swivel and a wrist swivel, which I've seen some people criticize this forearm swivel for being useless, but like, this allows him to do this pose, so not complaining. Waist swivel, thank goodness it has that. Legs can kick forward that far and back that far. He can do the splits. Not the biggest fan of how that looks, to be honest. Hinge joint here for the transformation, and another weird decision that they have here is 2 thigh swivels. Why? Want to talk about useless joints? This is a useless joint here. They could have just either had this or this. Either one would be fine, but both? The budget on that could have been spent on something else. Come on. We have a knee bend that I really wish could have gone a bit deeper. And finally, for the ankles, moves down that far, up that far, and a minuscule ankle pivot going both ways. Yeah, pretty darn limited posing compared to most modern figures. And it kind of brings back the trend of compromised Voyagers. But well, at least I think he looks good enough for him to do the... well, at least he looks good enough to strike some poses. Yeah, he's not the best figure ever when it comes to his posing. Personally, despite being someone who prioritizes articulation, I can still look past it. Simply because he looks so good even in stoic poses. I can definitely see it being a deal breaker for other people though. What I feel like won't be of such detriment, however, is the size of this thing. He's actually a damn big Voyager, which we'll unearth during these size comparisons. Here's Shockwave next to Bumblebee movie Starscream, Bumblebee Soundwave, Bumblebee Megatron, and yes, he's almost as tall. And now I can finally do this. Ooh, here's a group shot of them all together. It's a fantastic display and I'm incredibly happy to have all of them in my collection. Comparing him to a regular 6-inch scale figure, we have the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight. And finally, here's the Byway knockoff of the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Shockwave. Two incredibly different yet similarly badass designs for the character. A great looking and solid robot mode with a slightly lacking articulation. Could be better, but it easily could have been worse as well. I do like this robot mode, but the fact that he has very little in the way of kibble would perhaps mean that he'll have a mediocre alt mode. Yes? Well, yes, but actually no, surprisingly. But of course I'll have to show you the transformation first. The transformation isn't anything to write home about, but it's surprisingly fun. And the resulting H-Tag mode is actually kind of good. Look, I totally get why some people are opposed to this mode. It looks like a robot lying down. It's not the gun from G1, blah 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 blah. The latter reason is just, I don't care about G1 gun Shockwave too much, to be honest. Please don't be so close-minded, guys. Just let Shockwave have new alt modes that fit in with the new universe is better. But the former reason, I can kinda see it. But guess what? He really doesn't feel like a robot lying down. Everything here taps in solidly, forming a cohesive H-shaped brick of a tank. Part of that is because of these slots that theoretically prevented the bicep swivels in robot mode. Sacrificing the robot mode for the vehicle, not my favorite, but this time it actually paid off, so I'll let it slide. Speaking of sliding, that was a terrible segue. Woo, he rolls pretty well. And for the 5 of you Cyberverse fans in the audience, there really should be more of you. Cyberverse is a great show. You can fan mode him to give him a spider tank mode. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised by this alt mode. I think I even like it a bit more than the 2 intended alt modes for Bumblebee Megatron. But as a whole package, yeah, Megatron is just superior in my opinion. Does not mean Shockwave is bad at all. In fact, why don't we just get through some size comparisons and I'll let you all know my final thoughts. Here's Shockwave next to Starscream, Soundwave, Megatron's tank mode, Mr. Knight, and finally, Dark of the Moon Shockwave. A much more cohesive mode compared to whatever the hell this was supposed to be. And there goes my review for the Transformers Studio Series Voyager class Bumblebee movie Shockwave. Overall, it's another solid Studio Series release. A flawed release, but that doesn't mean it's devoid of good stuff. I love the aesthetic and solidity of both modes, and the transformation is fun. It's just a slight shame about the robot mode posability. If you are this deep into collecting the Bumblebee movie figures, this thing is a must-get. An absolute standout piece on your shelves that'll make the Autobots fall back. Just hope that he doesn't destroy the launchpad that is your wallet. With all that being said, I'd like to say thank you very much to everyone who watched this video. What did you think of it? If you enjoyed it, leave a like. Got something to say, leave a comment. And if you like the channel, feel free to subscribe. Farewell folks, I'll hopefully see you all next time. There will be no fully edited toy review next week. However, there will be a video about... Oh yeah, I told you I'd review this movie.